The Joel Fernandez Show is a talk show channeled spontaneously from source to edify and help raise the vibrations of truthers, starseeds, Christic alchemists, and others who have seen through this illusionary matrix into messianic consciousness by discussing hidden knowledge, higher dimensions, and manifesting so that we can shine our light for everyone to see and co-create the earth that we know we actually deserve to live in. Don't! I gotta go! I'm working on the show!
And welcome back to another episode of The Joel Fernandez Show. I'm your host, Joel Fernandez, and this is episode 18. 18, like 4.5 months later. I can't believe how this show has literally just taken off, and there's shadow banning. Of course, the institution doesn't want this information to get out, but no matter what they do, the response and the feedback that I'm getting from sharing this message has just been so overwhelmingly positive that I just have no choice but to continue. And I don't want to stop, because literally the energy that's come through, the information and just the passion that has been ignited just since sharing truth. That's what it's all about. We're all here to share a bit of our puzzle, a bit more of creating that picture of utopia. And as we do, we start to see it more and more concretizing around us. We literally step into a world that we never could have imagined, but that just blossoms like we wouldn't believe. It just explodes and erupts under the surface. So whatever's been brewing, whatever inner work's been calling, whatever talent source has given you and is in you and has been trying to bubble forth since you were young, now is the time. Now is the time. We're here for this specific time. We're born for such a time as this, and we're bringing to pass, ushering in the world that we know we're deserving of, so we can actually manifest our best life yet. Today I'm just doing some errands. I just had to go to the bank and pick up a few things, but keeping busy, even though we're locked down and we might not be able to hang out with everybody we want to, but we just got to get out there, get some sun, get some air. Yeah, today it was kind of especially cold. We had some really good weather for a while, but especially cold. It's still like 10 degrees Celsius. 10 degrees Celsius. But yeah, otherwise, normally I would just be filming today evening, Sunday evening, but I had a whole lot of stuff to do. And I'm just like, you know what? Gotta get it done. Because if you put it off for one day and then, your schedule gets tied up in the next few days, you don't get it done. So, had to get it done, had to take care of things, and now I'm filming just because now it's time to film. I'm gonna run into the studio in a bit here and continue, but I just want to get a head start. Last video was kind of rushed because I've been super busy and I didn't film when I was supposed to on a Sunday. It was still a good episode, and because I didn't plan anything for it, it really flowed from Source, and I think Source had a message in that episode that maybe normally I wouldn't have shared, but I'm pretty sure Source knew what Source was saying. I honestly felt like it was way too much, like I was going way out on a limb, but I think someone needed to hear that message. I saw a photo, posted a picture of the clock tower, and the caption on there reads, "Clock tower views and twilight hues." So we know it's a twilight, we know it's a dawning of something. And right above the clock tower, actually, very funny, there was like a cloud that looked like an angel. I don't know if you see it, but that's what I saw. So really interesting things happening, and we mustn't look to the media for a story because, well, for one thing, they're on the dark side. But even if they were telling the truth, by the time you get the story, it's way too late. It's already happened, and it's matter of fact. It doesn't give you an empowering place where you can actually make a decision and change an outcome. By then it's too late. Anyway, I'm not here to complain. We're here to build each other up. We're here to make a new world. That's what it's all about. But we all got to do our part. We all got a little piece of the puzzle that needs to be fit in. And once we get that piece clarified, and we actually start being who we're come here to be, just stepping into a bit more of our talent, stepping into a bit more of who we are, satisfaction like you wouldn't believe. Like, there's a lot of egotistic satisfaction circulating out there, especially with manifesting and people saying, oh, you can have whatever you want. They're taking it from a very egoic, mundane perspective. Materialism is great, and you need materialism to be who you are in this world fully, because we live in a material world. But it can't be the directional focus that you have. You have to have a much deeper focus, like put things into real perspective and see what causes all that material abundance. You know, it's some other principle underlaying that in the surface. But most people don't look that far. And that's okay, you know, that's the level they're at. But if you're at a higher level, you can manifest all of that. All of that will be a byproduct of what you're really manifesting. If you go to the causal realms, material stuff manifests like nothing. And it shouldn't even be the focus, because when you're manifesting these higher dimensional qualities, the journey is 10 times, even exponentially fulfilling. It's just like on a totally different level. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Make sure to keep in good spirits and do what we need to do, right? Don't let this lockdown or anything keep you from what you need to do, because it's easy to put it off or just say, oh, you know what? When the restrictions are better, that's when I'm going to get around to it. Guys, I put off my calendar, and while it was done and I printed the new version, I just didn't get around to finishing the artwork for it. And I put that off till just recently, just this last month in March. So you don't want to put things off when they need to be done. They need to be done for a specific time so that we can move to the next step. And we're not scrambling to build a foundation when we're already trying to put up the second floor. That's not the way to build reality. How do we build a new reality? How can we shape a world where we actually know that we're deserving of when we find ourselves in a world that totally is not what we wanted? You know, we wake up one day and we might want a new job or maybe new relationships. Things might not be serving us. Maybe we just want to live in a better house, right? We look around and we're like, you know what? I want a better house, or just I want new furniture. Or maybe you want something better for somebody else, right? Maybe you see a friend of yours or one of your family members. Maybe they're just not making the right decisions in life. And you just see that it's making things worse for them. And you're like, I want something better for them. How do you implement this and actually make it a reality? Well, first step number one is you got to know it's possible. You can't want a new reality. You can't want changes to your situation and keep cutting yourself down every time you try to imagine something better. You can't do it. You won't even be able to get past that first hurdle. First things first, you have to admit to yourself that a possibility is possible, that you actually are capable of a new horizon. Once you get that underway, then you can actually start to implement new possibilities. So step number one is to actually give yourself the possibility of achieving a new reality. Don't say it's not possible, oh, that will never happen for me, or oh yeah, it worked for so and so, but you know, I'm just different. I'll just do whatever I've been doing and that's good enough. Of course, with that mindset, that's all you can do. But if you break that mindset, that's the first step to actually achieving a new potential. Then once you're there, that's half the battle, because most of the battle, if not all the battle, is not other people telling us what we can and can't do. It's that we agree with them in our mind, that our own mental blocks come in the way, and we actually form paradigms in our own mind's eye as to what we're capable of and what we can achieve, and that is our worldview. Our whole worldview is built on the mind image that we have of ourselves. So once that changes, then changing the reality is a breeze. It actually just flows and follows from that, because that is all that the reality is built on. For example, if you want to go out to the store and buy something, you already know like a gist of where you're going to park, how you're going to deal with the cashiers, where you're going to pick up the product, right? But if you need to hire an employee for a company and you've never hired somebody before, you don't know the details of how that's going to go down. You don't know what questions to ask. You don't know how you're going to respond when they say something to you. So all of those nuances haven't been rehearsed. So you have to give yourself the possibilities. You have to create this framework in your mind of being the very person that you want to see yourself as. Once you start giving yourself that potential, then when situations in the real life show up that match that situation that you've imagined yourself to want to be, then you're actually going to start to think slowly at first, piece by piece at first, but you're actually going to start to think more and more like that person that you've imagined yourself to be. If a situation comes up that actually demands you to act as if you're that person in your imaginal scene, then you'll actually be able to think that way. And because you're thinking that way, even if it's a little bit right now, you're going to start to add little choices to that personality. Once those choices compound on each other, you're actually going to find yourself having built more of that scene, more of that world, embodying more of that character that you've wanted yourself to be. It's not going to happen overnight, because the difference from where you are now to the person that you've imagined yourself to want to be, there's a gap in between that. There's character, there's personality, there's growth that goes in between those two differences that you haven't accomplished yet. But once you get a little bit under your belt, you're more of that person, and you're going to start to see more of those events fit into the manifested reality. So the more we give ourselves the possibility of creating a new world, the more we're able to see circumstances from that new perspective. We're able to make choices based on that new personality that we want to see ourselves as. And as the events build one on top of each other, those choices compound, and we lay that foundation. Pretty soon, life events will start to homogenize and fit to that end scene, that end goal that we've envisioned ourselves to be. Some things can happen really quickly. Say if I just wanted to manifest a free cup of coffee, there's not so much that needs to line up for that to happen, and that can literally happen maybe in a couple of hours, maybe even an instantaneous manifestation. But if I want to manifest myself having a fulfilled family or a fulfilled business, sometimes there's a lot of baggage that needs to be cleared out for all of those building blocks to be laid in a way where the house is actually sturdy and can withhold the future that I'm envisioning. Because if I manifest a house that's, a dream manifestation, but I can't hold on to it, even if it comes right to my grasp, it will just slip right out of my hands. I won't be able to handle whatever it comes with, because I won't have built the character behind it. So whenever we manifest, we're putting into effect a mental scene embodying the state of being that we would be in that end result, embodying the character, embodying the thoughts, embodying the feelings, the emotions, all sensations of that scene. We embody that as if it's fulfilled, but getting there is a process, and we have a bridge of incidents where the time-space reality has to unfold and line up. It has to line up to that completed end that we've seen in our heart. In our heart, it's already finished. In our heart, it's already complete. And that's the paradox, the absolute mystery of what manifestation is because we're tapping in to the quantum source field where all possibilities are already reality. They already exist in totality, in fullness. In time-space, it exists outside of our experience of linear time. So the actual completed space exists somewhere in completed time. But because we have a progression of past, present, future in our experience of time, in order to get to that space that we would call future from our perspective in the present, in order to get there, it takes a matter of unfolding in space-time And that's just what I call the bridge of incidents. So getting there is this experience of events unfolding, situations being built, our character being honed and purified and made into that being that we've already seen ourselves as. Because that state, that imaginal scene, it exists. It is already a completed reality in the etheric causal realm. And because it exists in totality, that's the only way we can perceive it in awareness. So we plug into that scene, and like a conduit, like a pipeline, like the rivers, like the torrents flowing down this river, we get this information. It comes through awareness, because awareness is primary. Consciousness is the actual matter. It's not physical matter, right, that makes up the material world. It's our experience of the material world that makes up reality. Reality is first and foremost experiential and not material. It's not so much what is, but what is my experience of it, right? Because you might say, oh, this steering wheel is real. If I hit it, I hurt my hand, and that hurts, so therefore it's real. But guess what? This steering wheel is a physical material. It exists in the material world, and it is as material as your physical body. Your physical body is as material as the steering wheel. So therefore, it exists, yes, but only as much as your physical body exists. So the experience of being hurt by the interaction of your physical body with the steering wheel, that experience of pain is actually more primary. It's actually more real than the actual existence of the physical body itself. Think about that for a second. But while you do, I'm going to go to a quick break with Dzhivgini, and he has some really crazy stuff to share. I'm going to let him get into it because some of this stuff has just been blowing me away. I'm going to get right back in. I'm going to get some chili on the stove and hop back into the studio and continue the show, because they know there's a lot of information that's coming through at this time, and Source really wants us to share and get talking, get creating that world that we know we deserve off, right? So I'll see you guys in the studio.
The following is something to think about from Strange Landings TV.
Hey guys, Dzhivgini here again with another episode of some crazy history for you. Now, approximately 3/4 of all historic dates found in modern history textbooks can be traced back to the allegedly ancient book Evsebi Pamphili. This ancient work was most important for understanding the timing of historic events, which is why the father of modern fabricated history, Joseph Scaliger, undertook the project himself. After he copied this manuscript, he took the utmost care to destroy any original copies. This is how historical dates were made official, not by earnest scientists and not by honest historians, but by monks. And again, not just any monks, but a few specially selected small group of monks. These included the Society of Flemish Jesuits, who produced 53 volumes containing various ancient books, with none of the originals surviving the fires of the Inquisition. The Order of Benedict monks also copied the ancient works. And if you think all these societies were godly, upright historians, well, these are the very monks who personally confessed that they were correcting the books to fit the ideas of 17th century. And many times there were no originals to copy, as the monks simply fabricated new volumes to fit the new narratives. But replacing the entire history of the world isn't all that easy. I mean, even after creating a new version, the memories of the people still retain the original stories of their homelands, and that needed to be destroyed. So, under false flags of religious purges and combating heresy, lists of banned books were formulated, not just limited to religious books, but any old books. Anything with original knowledge, anything containing any semblance of the original shards of information had to be filtered out of the collective. If any one book of a given author was banned, all other books of this author were banned by default and would have been turned in by the citizens for burning, or else the citizens could end up in the fires themselves. And in addition to the books that unscrupulously found themselves in these inquisitory fires, the authors of these books many times would find themselves burning at the stake alongside their books. Military-style seizures were conducted, both publicly and in private. Borders were guarded, and travelers searched for books. Local, individual countries would all have to have their own adjustment of the dates and timelines, and it all depended on what kind of forgeries the natives would be able to accept. Some manuscripts, especially documents containing dates, are doctored to send events further back in time. This creates the illusion that things have always been like this, that we are hopeless, and the common person has forever been oppressed and manipulated. Now, concerning the way the years have been artificially shifted, we must first consider how years were written in medieval times. The year of our Lord, or Anno Domini, was written in two ways, with an I in front of the year, denoting the name Jesus, or an X, denoting Christos. So, for example, 300 years Anno Domini would be written as I 300, indicating the 300th year after historical Jesus. There are numerous examples of this in the literature, but most, if not all, have been cleverly covered up and explained away. For example, Luigi Alzevaray is considered a Renaissance publisher by mainstream historians. But in this frontispiece, the year written is obviously 595, preceded by a letter I, clearly followed by a dot. This obviously is not depicting the number 1. Another example is in this woodcut by Albrecht Dürer. The year is 527, clearly preceded by the letter I, which is even separated by dots. In this other example, we see another I preceding the year 656. There were many different hands employed to write this initial letter I. Another one here from Germany reads 658, but nowadays is invariably read as 1658. And this example from Nuremberg, Germany, clearly exemplifies the peculiar hand used to write the letter I before the numerals 699. This is clearly not the number 1. 1 was never written in this way. There are endless examples of this, but you can clearly see here where the initial letter is clearly the letter I, not the number 1. And in some cases, the number 1 was omitted entirely, as in these Slavic examples, referring to the years 740 and 750, nowadays interpreted as referencing the mid-18th century. Another example is in the old emblem of the city of Vilnius, on which it is clearly written 7th century, despite mainstream history declaring this duchy as a medieval province. So how did all this work in reality? How did the common person adjust to this 1,000 years of difference? When it was 600 years after Christ, how did they all of a sudden comply and join in the narrative that it was 1,600 years after Christ? Well, the truth is that the common person couldn't comprehend the magnitude of the transition that was underway because it was coincidentally at this time that a new calendar was introduced, the Gregorian calendar, with everything set to the supposed correct dates. Because this was done centrally by the nobility on paper, the commoner on the street couldn't even begin to rebut these reformations. In this decree from Copenhagen, when the new calendar was introduced, people were threatened with heavy fines to keep it,
And even if they tried to use the old calendar, even if people saw specific events, decrees were issued where if you talk about what you really saw, you would be sure to face punishment for opening your mouth. But there were many educated of the time who openly countered these narratives, including Isaac Newton, who, in addition to his feats in science and mathematics, was also a skillful chronologist. In his book, The Chronology of Ancient Kingdoms Amended, he argued that the histories of the kingdoms of Egypt were artificially sent back in time 1800 years, those of ancient Greece sent back 534 years, and Roman culture artificially set back approximately 1,000 years. Jean Hardouin, one of the most educated men in France in the late 17th to early 18th century, was a royal librarian who found out that the Scaligerian history was founded on works not proven authentic or genuine. In modern days, there are researchers like Anatoly Fomenko who has published volumes of authenticated histories, much of which seems too far-flung and fantastic to believe by most in our modern day. But this list of researchers uncovering discrepancies within the Scaligerian history is very long and only continues to grow longer exponentially as time passes. In addition, many contemporary scholars have done astrological work, surveyed ley lines, and examined the erosion of megalithic and other ancient structures to arrive at the same conclusion, that history has not always been the way it's commonly presented, and the inheritance of our true magical powers actually lays much closer on the threshold of our past than we've been led to believe.
Alright, we are back in the studio, and I'm just getting set up right now, just getting a little bit of myrrh on the burner. But what did you think about that video? I mean, I knew that not everything is the way it seems, but man, wasn't expecting something like that. But I mean, that just goes to show just how helpless we are. Like, literally, if we can't do anything about it, what are we going to do? Certain circumstances, certain situations might look like we're completely helpless, like we can't do anything about it. And I mean, if we think about it that way, we're going to get depressed. There's no way out and there's no solution. But when we realize that there's actually a way that we can actually change reality, where we can actually get in and actually anything we want, we can actually bring to pass. When we actually get in tune with that level, you know, we don't have to keep beating ourselves up. We don't have to define our reality just based on the same old whatever we see around us. Even if we see a story we don't like, even if there are situations that we don't want, you know, no matter what the situation is, all we have to do is break out of that mental block. All we have to do is break out of the mental barrier that's holding us back. And first step, we just have to give ourselves the potential, what it would be like if we were actually in that paradigm. What would it be like if we were actually that person? Just what would the possibility look like? That is step one. That's not the end of the line, but that's the first step. Most people don't even get that far. Most people, as soon as you suggest a possibility like that, they immediately say, oh, no, that's not for me. Oh, you know, I tried that once. Or, you know, I don't want to get my hopes up. Whatever the excuses are, they don't even let themselves take that first step. Why? Because they're scared. They're scared that they're going to let themselves down. They're scared that it's going to feel bad when they step out of the imaginal scene. Well, guess what? It's going to feel pretty bad if you don't go there in the first place. And I'm going to draw a tarot card here. You know, we're coming up to another quarter of the year, entering into the quarter of the springtime, and a lot of the energy has been very latent and it's not been moving along the way we've anticipated. I mean, a lot of things that we thought might be cleared out by now, you know, it seems like it's still being played out just in the world stage, and a lot of us don't know what's going on. We might be waiting for someone or some institution to tell us, you know, it's okay, or we can go ahead and do this one thing. Like, I mean, it's been a year now, right? We've been waiting,
and just had plans that have just been put on hold. And while reading energy is one way to go, definitely you want to make an informed decision rather than not. It is not our final authority. A lot of people think read astrology, read energetic patterns, find out what the energy is like so we can make a predictive, informed decision. But actually, we have absolute sovereignty over any situation. It might not look that way from time to time, but actually, we can control events no matter what the astrology says, no matter what the trends say. We can actually flip things around 180 degrees, actually absolutely transform situations and events. Even if they look impossible, we can actually manifest ourselves out of it 100%. So don't be controlled or ruled by what you see in predictive astrology or just in divination in general, because all of that is not definitive. It's not final. It's not there to tell you this is what the situation is and that's it. It's not there to predict an outcome. It's there to show you what trajectory you're on, but actually give you power so that you can either agree to that trajectory or you can actually change it. Actually turn that ship around, because you can actually turn around and head in the opposite direction full speed. That is how much power we have. We don't have to be ruled by what is. We don't have to be ruled by the same old, but we got to open our eyes first and foremost, see where we are, see where we're headed. That's where this comes in. So don't let this rule you. Don't look to this for answers, but look to this as if they're signposts telling you where you're going, and then you can turn that vehicle around if you so desire. So the card I got is the Six of Cups. So the symbolism on this card is very interesting because it's got a well with like a little cottage with some trees, a grove nearby, but a nice little garden. And we have in the foreground a youth, and he's got 6 cups, and they're arranged on a table with flowers in it. And we've got a gnome in there as well. So that represents, the earth element, stepping into the physical plane, the physical body, and really getting in tune with that. But in terms of cups, that represents the emotional world, where we really get in tune with, again, our youth. What are our talents? When we were youths, how did we express those talents? And what is it that we're here to do again? How can we bring those skills, that personality into the world and actually embody that nostalgia again? Bring that state of being to life once again. Because this card really embodies, those aspects of ourselves that might have been present when we were younger, but have since vanished. And in order to bring those back to life again, that's what's really going to bring these flowers back to life. Like recently, I actually germinated a few seeds, getting ready for spring, planting new plants, and really embodying, the energy where new life comes to fruition. And that's what we're embodying by manifesting. We're really getting in tune with who we are, what talents are inside of us, and then just letting that flower, just letting that come forth, just birthing that into the world. We can take steps to get there. We could just take steps going in our mind's eye, just living in imagination, and these memories, they're a thing of the past, yes. Even though we might focus on them, water those images, bring those seeds to life momentarily, we must remember not to live in them as external events. We must bring them real in our mind's eye just for that moment, but then when we're done, step back into the real world. Engage with the real world through our emotions and our thoughts. And because we've actually resurrected this aspect of ourselves that maybe was dormant for so long, but actually contains some of the seeds needed to build more of that world, to actually see that person as the end goal that we desire into fruition. The Six of Cups really represents bringing the past alive, bringing your childhood passions, your nostalgia alive, but doing so in a way that's not stressful. It's not trying to push the noodle. It's not trying to create a reality around a reality that you don't prefer. It's birthing that reality that you actually know is in you into the reality as it now is. So we're not really worried about changing the reality out there. We're just bringing into birth a new reality into that reality, and as that new reality grows and permeates that reality, then the old reality will just have no choice but to step aside for favor of that new reality. The trick is to enter into that childlike state of play where you're not actually trying to force anything, but you're just enjoying the situation. You're just enjoying the scene. You know, it's like you're watching the movie of life. You're just experiencing it. You're not fighting it. You're not struggling with it. And even if it's something you don't prefer, you're just flowing with it. You do have an image inside of you that is the way you want it to be, but you're not forcing things. You're not getting stressed out. You're not worried when it's not going the way that you prefer. You're not forcing that preference. You just rather have it as a scene in the back of your mind, and that's steering you towards that, making decisions and guiding your decisions, guiding your choices as you move towards that. Because as you do move towards that, and as your decisions and your choices and all your actions compound on each other, they will add up in line with who you've seen yourself to be. And more sooner than later, actually, that scene will concretize as a life experience. And actually, you might just be shocked at how accurate it matches the scene that's in your mind's eye. Even for things that you didn't even anticipate to control. Even for things that you may not have expected to be a certain way. In your imagination, in your mind's eye, they can actually photocopy onto the screen of space exactly the way you've seen them. So be careful when you visualize. You want to get really specific with what you want. Outline your scene exactly the way you want to see it, and don't leave anything out. Don't leave anything out, and don't settle for second best. Don't put other people in your scene as placeholders. Really be specific and give yourself everything you want to experience, because there's nothing off limits. You can literally have anything you want, and in fact, anything you imagine is likely to play out in your life experience. Get really serious, do this properly, because you can really have some real fun with this. That's the way life is. That's who we really are. That's what life is supposed to be. We are supposed to enjoy ourselves. We're supposed to have the best life yet. We didn't come here to struggle day to day. We came here to build a world that we not only deserve, but that future generations can actually thrive in, that we can actually build a utopia. 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 Because if you're still harping on getting beat up, or life experience not giving you what you want, or, just whatever your situation is, if you don't even let yourself out of the paradigm where you're a victim, you're never going to get out of that victimhood. But I can talk about manifesting literally all day long. There's literally no subject that tops this one, because this is what life is all about. We're here to create not only the world that we want, but no matter what we do, all of our actions are built on the thoughts and the paradigms that we have. Those thoughts and paradigms are manifesting our reality. Every decision that we make builds situations around us. It creates events and circumstances, and those all compound as we paint the picture that is our life experience. Each one of ours is different, but we're all doing it. We're all creating our own experience of what reality is. So at the end of the day, I think that at least we should try and make a better picture for ourselves. At least we should have a better experience that we said, yes, I did my best, I tried, and I actually created, these one or two things in the picture that I'm really proud of. Maybe not everything in that picture is 100% what I'd like it to be, but at least I fixed a few things that I know could have been better. That's what it's all about. That's what, as long as we're moving forward, as long as we're making strides to get to be a better person than where we were, that is all that matters, because we're making effort. I'm not saying that we have to constantly be beating ourselves up if we're not where we want to be. We can always be moving forward, even if we don't see that goal right away, even if we don't see the whole picture all at once. As long as we're moving a little bit here and a little bit there, we can't pull back, even though things might look hard. And as of right now, I really don't know how I'm going to go on with this show. I mean, the information that's coming through and the feedback that I'm getting is overwhelmingly positive, and I still want to continue putting this info out. I might have to pull it back a bit, just not be releasing every single week, but I'm still going to be doing this information because the desire is out there, people are hungry, and the time is now. On the surface, we can't tell if anything's happening. It's still kind of a push-pull. We have to continue. We have to keep pushing on. Because, just in the last little while, the gains I've seen have been just phenomenal. And I'm sure that if anybody out there, if you're doing the work, if you're just pushing through and just being who you're here to be, right? Bringing those talents to the table, I'm sure that the payback that you've seen is on par with that, just out of this world. And that's what we're aiming for. That's the world that we're building because we know we're capable of it. We know we've come here for that reason. So why would we want to settle for anything less, right? Let's get the job done. Let's take home a prize that we know we're deserving of and actually leave behind a world that was worthy for us all along. We got this. We got this. Oh, whoa, wait a minute. We got a message from Daryl. Daryl, what do you have to say on the subject, man? Yeah, Joel, first off, I just wanted to say, I really enjoy listening to your show. You really encourage me, especially with what's been going on lately. You really shed a lot of light on things that I would have normally just not known what to do with or just have questions around. But hey, I was just wondering, you mentioned that, history is manipulated, and I never even thought that it was manipulated to the extent where, they just added 1,000 years in the middle of it. But even if they did add 1,000 years just at random, what can I do to change that? What are some practical things that I can do? Because I can't even change that. 1,000 years, there's no way that I can even begin to make a change when corruption on such a magnitude has gone down. What can I do in my life? And really, what does knowing about this corruption adding 1,000 years to history, how can that make me actually make a better decision today? Well, Daryl, I'm glad you brought that up because even starting this show, I used to talk about Illuminati playing cards. I was really big into the conspiracies and just, the hidden nature of reality because it's all in this stuff that's been hidden from us where our true power lies. Because if we knew about that, we'd actually be able to make choices that were different and actually dig us out of that hole, make the changes needed. But because we've been lied to, because things have been covered up, we don't have that power anymore. So yeah, what good does it do if we find out that, up to 1,000 years have been added in our history? Okay, great, but what do I do about it? And it's a pressing question, but the answer might probably be what you already thought you knew. Can't really do much about it anyway. But here's what you can do about it. Once you know that the narrative has been manipulated, you know not to just swallow everything that you've been told. That's the first step. It's as soon as you learn that, not everything is the way they've been telling me, just take a step back and to gauge the information that you're receiving. Because otherwise we'd be swallowing everything without questions. And I know that's where I started. I was raised in a very sheltered world. I was raised to believe everything that the authorities, my parents, the teachers, everybody around me was telling me. Because, hey, they all had my best interests at heart. But it was the way that the institution was set up. Don't question authority, because if you question authority, that just makes their job harder for them. It just makes control harder to enforce. But as soon as you question things, you actually start to break free out of that mold. You start to peer past those blinders and break those barriers down that are holding you back. And once you do that, you realize just how free nature is, just how much power really resides in your true expression, your freedom, your capability of actually being yourself in fullest potential. That's not only who you are, what you've come here to be, but that's what we all need you to be here to be. We all need to be our own little individual pieces of the puzzle so that we can create that picture in fullness. But if we're not being our own little piece of the puzzle, that little piece is not going to have the picture on it that's needed to have the full picture in completion. So while the picture might look good overall, that little piece over there or that little corner just won't have the details that are needed to have the actual completion of the picture. And that's what we're striving for. That's what we're going for. We want the utopia that we're here to create, that we're here to live in, and we want it in fullness. Not just for ourselves, for everybody else, for future generations, for the sake of the whole world. That's what it's all about. It's for the whole to be fulfilled. And once that whole is fulfilled, we're all fulfilled. We all can step in, step up, and embody more of this nature that we're here to experience. So it's very easy to tumble down some of these rabbit holes and just try to figure out, where's the manipulation gone and how have we lost our control? Where can we regain our control? What if I look into this subject? Will I find a lot more of my control there? Actually, all of that adds up. But the thing that can have the most profound effect on gaining your sovereignty back is stepping in to your talents, stepping into why you're here. What have you come here to do? That mission, that calling, that's it. That's it. That's what it's all about. That's the bottom line. Once you step into that and not worry about anything else, don't judge yourself in relationship to what business or relationships or other things that other people might have or what other things you would have. Just step into that full potential. What are you here to be? What brings you that fullest satisfaction? What do you like doing? That's it. Once you step into that and embody that, that satisfaction just flows in. Once you step in, step up, you embody that state of being, all of the other state of beings just flood in and concretize to that. They all magnetize to that because they have to. Once you step into that state of being, it all magnetizes towards you. Everything else that embodies a fulfilled state of being, it all comes together. It all concretizes. It all coagulates because it has to. It has to fulfill itself because once you are in a fulfilled state of being, reality has to step up and allow you to embody that state of fulfillment. I mean, the worst thing would be when we get out of this life and it's all said and done and we just turn around and take one look back and we see all the things that we didn't do that we came to do. Anything else, like what other people didn't do to us, or maybe things that we did wrong, that all doesn't matter as much as the things that we knew that we were here to do, and we didn't do those things. That's where the real pain is going to lie. When we see those things that we knew that we were supposed to go towards, but we ran in the other direction. We literally ran from those things. That's what's going to hurt the most. So let's not have any regrets, right? Let's actually do what we're here to do. Let's do it well. Let's do it on time, efficiently, punctually, ecumenically, everything just on point. And when we get out of here, we're actually going to get our crown, get our reward, get our prize, because we ran this race with pride. I'm going to get going. I got a whole lot going on right now. Projects like with this, putting together this right brain curriculum. It is really a great project, but I'm excited because we're moving into a new era where we're actually reclaiming not just our right hemisphere of our brain, but our whole brain. We're stepping into being holistic beings, no more being limited by the left brain paradigm. We're actually coming into our heart center, re-entering the Garden of Eden, and we're really being who we're here to be, and we're really re-embodying who we're created as B'nai Elohim, sons of the angelic realm. We're not these in fact, we are the aliens in this planet. We are the ones out of place, and once we realize our true place, then we're going to actually step into our true power. We're going to realize that things weren't as out of place as we thought they were. It was just us that was out of our right brain paradigm. So step up, step out. We'll do this. We got this. We're getting it done. We're creating this new world that we know we're deserving of, that we know our children are deserving of, that we know that all future generations will thank us for. We were born for such a time as this, so let's run this race with pride, strong.
Is everybody ready now?
Let's get it done.
I love you guys from the bottom of my heart. I really do. And I'll see you in the next video. And until then, stay optimistic because we're doing this. We are creating a utopia.
Utopia.
Agape, salaam, namaste, hotep.
Top story once again at this hour is the continually escalating situation in the Middle East. Soviet, Libyan, and Syrian forces are all reportedly building up along the southern Lebanese border, threatening to invade Israel. Warnings from the United States and allies.
The world around us in a rage. Newspapers tell of fear on every page. The prophecies of old unravel and unfold in time's last days and of the age. Satan strikes with deceitful power, seeking and searching whom he may devour. The prophets do arise, the signs are in the skies, the sands run down earth's final hour. But you have come into the kingdom for such a time as this, to fulfill, you see, the destiny for your life. Special plans and preparation for this generation. You have come into the kingdom for such a time as this. Such a time as this. This is it. God placed his special gifts in you. Believer, fight for what you know is true. Tempted to compromise, cast down enemy lies, courageously stand up for the truth. 'Cause you have come into the kingdom for such a time as this, to fulfill, you see, the destiny for your life. Special plans and preparation for this generation. You have come into the kingdom for such a time as this. Such a time as this. This is it. You have come into the kingdom for such a time as this, to fulfill, you see, the destiny for your life. Special plans and preparation for this generation. You have come into the kingdom for such a time as this. Such a time as this. Come into the kingdom.
Ugh.